Welcome to Christian Statesman. I'm your host, Zach Wagner, and this is episode 86, The Decline of the Dollar. Nearly 2 centuries ago, Lord Alexander Tytler, Scottish professor and historian, said, "A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that a democracy always collapses over loose fiscal policy, always followed by a dictatorship." In the current political environment, one has to wonder if Lord Tytler had a time portal to look directly at us and our actions. If only our federal overlords were so conscientious. A little research will show that we are now increasing our national debt at a rate so profound, the death of our dollar is essentially a done deal. It has long been lamented that debt in Washington is one of the only truly bipartisan things one can agree on. One late U.S. Senator and acute political historian once quipped, "The only difference between a Democrat and a Republican is the type of programs they choose to overspend on." Witty and unfortunately very true. If we look at the entire budget for the United States from George Washington up until George W. Bush's last day in office, the United States deficit spending totaled $8 trillion. That is adjusted in 2021 dollars. That includes the Civil War, 2 world wars, untold social programs, including the New Society, numerous brushfire wars such as Vietnam and Iraq, and countless other shibboleths. Since 2008, we've added another $20 trillion to our deficit in just a few short years, and this does not account for another $15 trillion or so generated by the Federal Reserve for whatever purposes they deem necessary. Biden and his acolytes have already spent nearly $4 trillion in new programs this year and have another $6 trillion proposed in the months ahead. I'm not sure we know how profound $1 trillion is. 1 trillion seconds ago, it was roughly 30,000 BC. A stack of $100 bills equaling 1 trillion would extend from Chicago to New York. 1 trillion $1 bills laid end to end would reach to the sun. 1 trillion miles is 300 times the distance from Pluto to Earth. In other words, 1 trillion is a big number. And in just over a decade, we have added 20 trillion to our deficit, with many more trillions in the pipeline. The most difficult issue involves what this will do to the dollar. And in fact, the inflation is already starting to roll out and will inevitably get much worse. But even more pressing, one must ask, where has all this money gone? We've spent far more than any cumulative collection of social programs. We are bribing the citizenry, as Lord Tytler foretold, but we are spending far more than that in the aggregate. And where are the supposed responsible conservative voices seeking to slow or reverse this trend? Where was Donald Trump? Where was Rand Paul? Where were supposed conservative champions like Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, or Tom Cotton? Why is no one raising an absolute vociferous fuss over the crippling amounts being wasted in the utter decimation of our dollar? The answer may very well be it does not matter where it has all gone, since no one seems to be held accountable anyway. Nothing seems to change no matter who is in office. America's future has been stolen. As our deficit approaches $30 trillion and more, it is obvious there will be no way to pay it back. And it must be asked, what was that the intention all along? The dollar is in serious trouble, and the wealth that millions of Americans have worked so hard for over decades now lies in the balance. It could disappear very quickly in an historical repeat of the Weimar Republic. Can we turn this around? Doubtful. Do we have any political will at all to reverse the trend? It does not seem so. When we see that conservative states like Texas, Wyoming, Utah, or Idaho manage their own affairs so well, it is nothing short of criminal that our federal overlords have put them and every other state in such a position. Will we hold them accountable? Will we ever return to any sort of fiscal responsibility? We'd better hope so for our future and that of our children. Thank you for being with us. Please subscribe, and as always, have a blessed day.